what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. Across from me in our illustrious table here is Mr. Chris Fry, my co-director, co-founder of the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. How goes it, Chris?
It goes well.
Yeah.
I actually made time in my life for watching three different movies this weekend. So that's a good run there.
3 movies in a 72-hour-ish period.
2 of which we're reviewing on this show.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. Life's good.
Okay, that's a good weekend in my books.
Yes.
So as far as I'm concerned, I feel like we haven't done this in a while, but we have. It's been like our 2-week schedule, right?
I think we're maybe off a week. I think we bumped a
it
week.
feels like it. I can feel it. I can feel
You
like
just feel a little off.
There's a little more built up, to
Right.
talk about.
Sure.
We never got around to talking about the Academy Awards and the outcomes of that. I know it seems like that was an eternity ago, but we are going to recap that later in the episode. But as Chris mentioned during his little personal commentary there, he did watch 2 films. Those 2 films are ones we're going to review on today's show. First up, we'll be reviewing the latest film. Well, I guess it's really the first film by director-writer Jesse Eisenberg. You may know as an actor, but he has written and directed a film that we'll be discussing. It is called When You Finish Saving the World. That also stars Julianne Moore and Finn Wolfhard. Followed by, we're going to be reviewing the film Pinball, The Man Who Saved the Game. This one's starring Mike Feist and is directed by, the Braggs. Austin and Meredith Bragg and they also wrote the film as well. So we'll be discussing those 2 films, as well as we'll get into some movie news, mainly in the world of the Academy Awards. We will be kind of giving our little post take on the Academy Awards from this year's ceremony. Since we did a nice episode where we kind of gave our predictions, now we can kind of follow suit and see how did we do and were there any main surprises or outcomes we didn't expect. Then we'll follow it up with our recommendations. This is where Chris and I both bring a film to the table that we want to recommend to you as one that you can check out online or watch at your own leisure. Chris, I'll go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. Mine may be a negative recommendation. I don't like to throw those out often, but I have done them from time to time.
Okay.
And what that basically means, Chris, is that I have not seen a film outside of the ones we're going to review that I want to talk about or recommend, but I have seen a film that I'd like to actively dissuade people from maybe spending their hard-earned money to check out.
Fair enough.
Okay. So that's what's gone on tap for today's show. Chris, are you ready to jump right into our first review?
Let's do it.
Okay, the first review is Jesse Eisenberg's When You Finish Saving the World.
Hey, Mom, can you drive me today?
Are you ready to go now?
Yeah, just give me like 5 seconds.
By that logic, we should just occupy every country.
Yo, I agree with you, Lila.
Thank you, Ziggy. How do you agree with Lila?
Excuse my brain for knowing what not to say. I know it'll get better with age.
When You Finish Saving the World is writer-director Jesse Eisenberg, who we all know is an actor who's performed in many, many roles, pretty recognizable actor, getting his hand behind the wheel of in the director's chair here for this film. Chris, a lot of people probably came to know Jesse Eisenberg from one of his earliest films, which was Noah Baumbach's The Squid and the Whale.
Yes.
Now, as I bring up the film The Squid and the Whale, which has to do with a kind of a academic family that's maybe a little out of touch with reality just because of the lofty grandeur they surround themselves in. Mm-hmm. It's both dramatic, but it's humorous in the way this family is so. What's the word I'm looking for with this? How would you describe that family? They're
They are privileged.
Privileged. That's a good way of putting it.
And they are very well educated.
Yep. That's another way of putting it. Okay.
And
You see where I'm going with all this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we're understanding that what I'm doing is basically trying to tie a connection between the role that Jesse Eisenberg became, I think, a little more known for in one of his first like big critically acclaimed films, and now his first directorial debut film, which there are more than a handful of similarities to. Okay. So in the film here, When You Finish Saving the World, the story is about Evelyn, who's played by Julianne Moore, and her oblivious son Ziggy, played by Finn Wolfhard, as they seek out replacements for each other as Evelyn desperately tries to parent an unassuming teenager at her shelter, Ziggy fumbling through the pursuit of a brilliant young woman at school. So this idea of two people, two individuals, mother and son, actively trying to court relationships with other people to fill what they may feel like is a void they're experiencing themselves, or maybe what they're overlooking in their own life. And you see the trailer. I think we actually showed the trailer for this during one of our trailer tapas.
I believe we did.
And obviously, like a lot of these independent drama comedy films, they try to play up the comedy a little bit more in this film. Well,
Right.
Chris, I've done a lot of setup on this film here. I threw a lot of opportunities for you to go with on your review. I want to hear what you thought of When You Finish Saving the World. What messages do you have for Mr. Eisenberg as notes for maybe a second film down the road?
Well, I think it's a good directorial debut. Is it a perfect film? No. We'll get to that. But I do feel like for a director to make a film, I had not thought of, which I think is a good thing, I had not thought of the squid and the whale while I was watching this film. If I had, I probably would have been bothered a lot more than I was. Not to say I didn't find things that, little things I can nitpick, or not nitpick, but just, things I can ding the movie for, just talk about things I didn't necessarily appreciate. I will say, doing a little research into the film after I watched it, I learned that basically Eisenberg, you mentioned, he wrote it and he directed it. He had first gotten this idea where he basically did like an audiobook for Audible, and it was an original work where he kind of told this tale, and I could see, and then he adapted it and wrote it for the screen. I can see how this film, which is only 128 minutes, I can see how as an audiobook where you get these conversations, then you get some narration about I can see how it probably might have worked a little better, because overall the film I felt like was a little thin. There were things there that there are things like social media commentary or internet fame, okay? Coming of age, high school struggles, okay? Well-intentioned parents that are engrossed in their own jobs while overlooking their families. Okay, these are all familiar tropes. You talked about Squid and the Whale. That family is a lot more dysfunctional than this family. There's a divorce going on. And there's no social media. But I can see the comparison. It is a coming of age. The son's coming of age with a difficult parent. This time it was the dad as opposed to the mom in this story. But familiar tropes that I feel like overall have been handled better in other films, like Squid and the Whale, which you mentioned. That said, I did appreciate Julianne Moore. I liked her in this film. I didn't really like her character, but I liked her portrayals of it. I feel like it's just something she's well accomplished at. She, somebody says, okay, I need you to play this mother who has all these high ideals and means well, but overall, and sometimes is too preachy to her son. She's like, I got it. Stop talking. I can. She's like, I can do this in my sleep. So I think I also appreciated seeing Finn Wolfhard doing something besides running away from monsters. This is my first experience, I think, seeing him outside of the Stranger Things universe.
Oh, really?
So I think maybe
I've seen him in a few films.
I can't. And
He was in the Ghostbusters
Afterlife.
You haven't seen that?
Have not.
And there was another film I saw that he was in. I can't remember what it was now.
So So this is my first time really seeing him that I can recall outside of and definitely holding a role this big. It's like he's the main character in Julianne Moore. And I thought he did a good job with what he was given. But I think the script needed the script needed more.
Yeah.
But for a directorial debut, Jesse Eisenberg, I think it was okay. So let me throw it back to you. Now you've got my original reaction.
I'm a couple notches down from the okay.
Oh, and are you? Is it a couple of notches down from the okay / fine, or is it fine, which is slightly below okay?
No, it's not quite fine for me. Okay. So I'm below the fine threshold here.
Below the 3 stars.
Yeah, I had a tough time with this one. Okay. I think you were on the money when you said it's the script. Mm. It's thin. It's super thin, and I feel like this is one of those examples of a quote independent film where you've got some interesting characters and you've got some interesting moments, but there's not a lot else to tie it all together beyond that. So again, I can hearken to this film and say, yeah, there were 3 or 4 moments I genuinely really, really liked. 3 or 4 scenes, 3 or 4 encounters I really liked. I think the characters are interesting. I like the characters. Well, not like them as far as like,
they were
but I found them very engaging, interesting characters to follow. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't know what I'm getting from this outside of just some interesting character moments and interesting character studies. Mainly because, and again, we'll get without spoiling, but
sure.
As it builds to the end of the film, and there is an ending to this film that if it were in another film, I think would have worked extremely well for me. Or if the story preceding it had led us to that point, I would have found that ending very, very satisfying.
I think we're on the same page there.
But as it is, this whole film, I'm giving Jesse Eisenberg the shadow of a doubt the whole time I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, it's a 90-minute running time.
Right.
Or less than 90 minutes, actually. I'm like, look, I'm on board. It's like, he hasn't got me yet, but let's get to an ending that's going to work for this story. And I'm kind of holding out hope the whole time that something's going to propel this to mean something or to give me something. And they put on an ending that I don't feel like was earned at all. I don't understand how you get to that ending. I don't understand what preceding this film, it made me lead to this ending to think this ending was where you need to end this film. But I love the ending. Just not with the rest of the film. Okay,
let me defend the film / totally agree with everything you just said.
Okay, yeah.
Because one of my notes here says, I need something more in the development of Evelyn and Ziggy characters as the story progressed to get where the film landed at the end.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now let me, there again, we don't want to spoil this for anybody. Not that you could really, I guess you could spoil the exact ending, but I'll dance around it and kind of explain some things. There are some moments in the film where there are missed connection opportunities for the characters of Evelyn and Ziggy, where they may be in the same space and not know it.
Like in a high school, like in one of those towards the end. Yeah.
And so I think there's some instances of that, which had they been maybe scattered, there had been more instances of that, then you would have kind of bought how in the end they kind of make this connection that hadn't, like, I think it was like, I mean, it's set up in the premise of the film. There's a mom who's seeking something. She's seeking a connection with a teenager to be a good parent, and she finds it out, or she's trying to find it outside the home. There's this teenager that is trying to find himself, but also aspiring to be with this really intelligent, hyper intelligent woman.
Well, he's aspiring to be with someone who's a lot more like his mother than he's willing to admit.
Correct.
And so I think, you got those two, and you're right. I do think there's a moment in the high school towards the very end of the film where, you're starting to see the idea that the mom is just right around the corner dealing with a whole nother situation than what the son is over here dealing with. I liked where that was kind of exploring. It just wasn't enough to lead me to what happens in the next scene, which is them leading to a finale that I think the whole film, you can kind of see the work that is being done with Julianne Moore's character and the young man that she's trying to help. And you can see how that kind of mirrors Ziggy. But with the Ziggy character, Finn Wolfhard's character, the son, you can't really see him
trying to build. I think you don't see it as a two-way street, maybe, and you need it a little bit more balanced, and then you could buy the end.
There's one
maybe.
moment where they kind of touched on it, where he's asking his mother for advice on how to do something, which doesn't go well. And it tries at moments to show the connection there and to kind of build for something that would give the foundation for the ending we received.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I'm just kind of spinning my wheels for a little over an hour, waiting for something of substance to really take place to make this film work. And we get to an end, and an ending that is really beautiful, a nice, beautiful ending that just did not match the rest of the film I just saw, and showed me no connective tissue between it to make me feel like that. It felt like it was like, okay, we know we want to have this ending. Don't really know how to get there, but this is the ending we're going to have. Come hell or high water, this is going to be the ending.
Right.
And that's how it kind of felt by the end of the film. So,
you mentioned in the setup that the trailer, which we think we'd shown on a trailer top, so we'll have to get the intern to tell us whether or not that's true. But I think you're right on that.
I think we did.
There were moments of humor that showed parents and children trying to, interact with one another. A parent interrupting a child's online activity, and that causes, frustration, or waiting on a child to depart a house, and the child says, "I'll be like 5 seconds," and they're not. To me, very relatable,
Sure.
But could have used more of those instances, or maybe just shift and give the film a totally more dramatic tone and just drop the humor out altogether.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, I think that was like, it was kind of struggling the line between, do we want to be a quirky little comedy with some drama, or do we just want to be a straight out drama? And I think maybe because there were so few instances of comedy, maybe they could have just dropped those down.
They could have.
altogether.
They could have made this a straight drama and like not left anything out to chance.
Right.
I mean, but as far as dark comedy goes, there are a couple great moments on the dark comedic side. I'll just say the line, "Congratulations on your birthday," which pronounced by the Julianne Moore character in such a way, so droll and so biting in a way. Like early in the film, you get right away who she is and what she values and what she doesn't.
Right.
There's a situation with the father receiving an accolade, something very important to him, but neither of his family members even remembered it was happening.
And he says, "You guys are so self-involved."
Yeah. It's just, you guys suck, which again, dark humor.
Right.
But it's just the way that was framed with him sitting by himself at a table. Like,
Right.
it was a couple of those moments worked, but again, they didn't go far enough with any of them or have enough of those moments to make it where I could say, oh yeah, it was a good blend of comedy and the dramatic elements. Yeah, it definitely was heavy on the drama side, where it made those quick little moments of humor seem very forced and just didn't seem very natural.
You mentioned the dark humor of the film. How about the darkness of the film, Alan?
Oh, yeah. So I asked you about this before we even got into our review. Is like, Chris, did you find the film visually dark, meaning a little hard to see? And yeah, it turned out it was not just me. So this film is it's shot very dim, very dark. And it's just, it's a bit of a challenge to watch. I watched, in a room that I still have some daylight outside. I had to intentionally shut all the windows just to be able to see the film a little bit better on the screen.
Yeah, there's a lot of interior shots at the house of Ziggy and Evelyn, like some dinner table scenes.
Yeah.
It just seemed really, 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 really dark. And maybe they were trying to indicate how dark it is in their house or something, because there's not a lot.
But even on the outside shots were still like dark too. So it's like the whole film just had like a dark haze over it the whole time. Made it a little tougher to watch, a little tougher to enjoy and appreciate as such. So look, I'll say this. I think all the performances are solid. I liked everybody in the film that was doing what they were doing based on the script. There's nothing about direction of this film that makes me think that there's anything that kind of stands out as Jesse Eisenberg, kind of something he's really good at. It was a very run-of-the-mill shot, independent / dramedy or whatever. They're a dime a dozen, unfortunately. We've reviewed so many of them over the years that fit this same mold. So it's just, at the end of the day, what's going to make this film work is an interesting story, or at least a story that leads to something. And I don't feel like we got it here. So overall, I was disappointed in the film, let down, didn't feel like it really worked for me on many levels. So
Yeah, I think we're basically on the same page. So
You threw out the word fine at one point, so I think
I was challenging to see where you were, but I was trying to be the overall optimist, but I think I struggled enough with the film to be fair that I think we're probably landing about the same way. I don't know that I would like to give it 3. Just simplification. I'd like to give it 3. Don't know if I can.
No, I'm definitely in a 2-star range here.
Okay.
I think
I think I may give 2.5.
I think there's acting. The acting is interesting enough, and there are some moments that really work for me. And I do think the ending is good, just not warranted for this film.
Well, something that I liked I guess, I think I'm definitely 2.5. The son is trying to be a musician. I can't remember the name. He uses his online name, something Cats or something like that.
Yeah, Ziggy Cats.
Ziggy Cats, Z Cats or whatever. But some of his compositions I kind of liked, and it had this Daniel Johnston feel to it.
Yeah.
They're again very fitting with the movie, very indie rock.
Daniel Johnston, or is that right?
That's the one I'm thinking of. Who are you thinking of?
No.
This is the guy who, there's been a whole documentary. Maybe that could be my recommendation, but probably not. But yeah, Daniel Johnston, just the way it's like strumming a guitar and like saying all these like lyrics about relationships and stuff. But anyways, I like the music, and then just the score of the movie kind of carried it in some parts that did some heavy lifting. There again, I see your Alan's.
Well, it's just the score was another one of those. Yeah, that's independent
Indie
dramedy.
music, yeah.
This is what you get. It's quirky. It's a little abrasive
liked
music. Yeah.
So, I think I wish I would have liked them to do a little more with it. Maybe, of course, like we've said.
I would have liked a little more of anything. I mean, really, this is going to sound like a horrible insult, and I'm not meaning it to be, but it's just really this is the way. This film to me, I've watched Jesse Eisenberg as an actor.
Yeah,
we've seen him in a lot of roles. He does have kind of a type he plays, generally speaking, except for when he's playing Lex Luthor for some reason.
I liked that.
No, I did too, but it's not. That is the most atypical Jerry
sure.
Eisenberg role. This movie to me felt like if Jesse Eisenberg turned into a movie, it would be this movie.
Well, okay. I think it may be somewhat autobiographical.
I do. So I was questioning how much of it was
reading
autobiographical.
About the Audible thing, it sounded like something that it may have also kind of been like a story that he was telling about his life loosely.
I could see that because this does. It's very. It has a style and a tone that I do feel like is very, very pointing to who the director is.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if that was distanced very well. It didn't need to be. I mean, you can embrace this as this is a personification of him as a director into a film. So that's great. I would have liked more. I would have liked something more to be there. So
fair enough.
Okay, so that is When You Finish Saving the World. It is available for rental or purchase on Apple and Amazon and all those good places. You can check out stuff. All right, Chris, let's move on to our second film, which is the film Pinball, The Man Who Saved the Game.
It may be the thing that I am best at.
Why are they taking the machines?
We got busted. It never even occurred to me that the game was illegal.
But for over 3 decades, pinball was banned in New York City.
I want to show the city council members that they've had it wrong for all these years.
Oh, you're a reporter?
I just have a question about the pinball ban, sir.
Somebody keep these damn kids away from me.
I've played pinball since the days I'd walk to the local arcade after middle school to spend my hard-earned lawn mowing money. Later, the game would endanger my being able to do laundry in college because of the games of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, Getaway, featuring a ZZ Top soundtrack, and of course, The Addams Family. I'd play. Despite being a pinball fan, I never knew that at one time the machines were banned across the United States in some places. Alan, how well did Pinball, The Man Who Saved the Game, work as a biopic of sorts and as entertainment for you?
I will say very well on both accounts.
Okay.
I like this movie a lot. I was very surprised by this movie.
Okay.
This is a movie that honestly, when you and I decided we were going to review it, I had not heard a single thing about it. I never saw the trailer.
Never saw the trailer either.
Never saw it. So I queued this up. I pulled back on the plunger.
Nice.
Let it go. And I had a blast with this movie. I thought it was a fun little film. You asked how it works as a biopic. Good. pretty good. It's a subject like you said, I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about a ban on pinball machines in New York City and Chicago.
And
for
maybe
like
other
30
places,
years.
but definitely those two places. Yeah.
Never knew. So that to me was interesting enough. I didn't know anything about this, the court case involved and kind of trying to make them legal again. So all that is great. How did it work as entertainment? Also worked really well. Okay. There's breaking the fourth wall going on in this film, which at first, when it started, I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I like this.
Okay.
But they played with it and they had fun with it. There's a moment in here that I actually bust out laughing on the whole fourth wall breaking.
Is that the curse word?
It is the curse word. That's one of the two.
Okay.
Where basically a character is about to utter a curse word and right away it cuts to, we are treated to being, quote, interviewing the actual subject of the film is kind of a documentary style format.
Right.
And he even says, what rating are we going for with this? And they're like, PG-13. He's like, so you get away with one of the F words. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to save it. It's like till later. Right. I'm like, that is awesome. Right. The other moment is he's queuing up a music cue he'd like to have played during the movie. And the directors have to interrupt and say, no. We can't quite afford that needle drop right now. Right. It's like, okay, fine. So it's just, I love that they're like, okay, I don't mind the staged documentary within a movie format, but to do it and have fun with it, like made it work for me. So I just had a good time with it. Even the ending, which there's an ending moment where I'm like, the big climax conclusion. And I thought, oh man, they really went over the top with that. And then turns to find out, yeah, they know they went over the top. Even the narrator jumps in and is like, man, that's not the way it happened. It's like, go back and play it again. I'm like, thank you. That's what I needed for this film. So look, format wise worked great for me. I loved it. I thought it was very entertaining. I'll go ahead and say too, Mike Feist, who starred as Roger, I really liked. He was fun. He was an engaging performance. He's playing a very kind of a dorky guy, like late 20s, who's already been through quite a bit in his life.
Been married and divorced.
Divorced, and kind of out of his career now. And just, I bought the relationship he formed with Ellen, a girl he started dating. I just bought it. I bought his both passion for the game of pinball, but also his reluctance to get too involved with it for various reasons. And the whole, the relationship he decided how to form with his potential stepson. Yeah, it all worked. The relationship was great. So I really liked Mike Feist in this movie. I've been talking for a while, Chris. I'm high on this movie. I like it a lot. What do you think of this?
So I'm on the same page, which, I think we talked, it was either an episode ago, we were going to try to like line up things so we both weren't the same.
I know. So much for that.
Yeah,
so.
Right. I think I am a little higher on you than when the first film, but I think this film, I think you and I are kind of lockstep on it. I knew very little. You and I were trying to come up with a second film to review to pair with the film by Jesse Eisenberg. And I was like, well, let's do another independent film. I saw this and I was like, well, I know nothing. Didn't even watch the trailer, but I was like,
no, I didn't either.
Mike Feist. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm butchering it each time I say it.
But I saw he was in it and I was like, you know what? He made such an impression with West Side Story.
He played, I forget which character in West Side Story, but he was basically the second command of the Jets.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And so he kind of the villain, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And he did a really good job and got a lot of acclaim for that role. So when I saw he was
didn't get a
in
nomination,
this,
which I was ticked off about.
Which you weren't. A lot of people were. But when I saw he was in this, I was like, okay, this is kind of another project, but it's a small film. Let's see what he has to offer. And I thought he was great.
Yeah, he was fun. He was a human. I mean, he's playing a little bit of a caricature. I mean, just because it's very different than how he is himself.
Right.
But I bought it. I never felt like it was forced. I never felt like it was over the top. I mean, he was just generally playing a good character, and I connected with it.
And so he was playing the young version of Roger Sharp, who's the guy who did this whole turning pinball around for New York City. But what I liked equally, and I thought was actually equally as important, is the guy who plays the kind of much older version, who's in theory being interviewed for this documentary that's, like you say, it's kind of a mockumentary. but Dennis Boutsikaris, I think is how you say his name. And I recognized him. I was like, where have I seen this guy before? And I thought he did a really good job. And it was only afterwards I realized he's been on the show Better Call Saul, the kind of spinoff from Breaking Bad. It's good. And he's really good in it. But that's where I've seen him. And I was like, okay. Because he was so good that I was like, I know this. I know I've seen him, but what have I seen him in?
Yeah.
But I thought he was really good.
See, I remember when we reviewed Stupid and Futile Gesture.
Yes.
And very similar in style, in that it's, kind of that documentary, but it's not a real documentary. It's kind of staged a little like a documentary. The main character flashing back to his childhood or youth. Same kind of concept here. Mm-hmm. The difference is that they are very intently saying, we're going to break that fourth wall and actually interact during the film.
Right.
And kind of, interject, and we acknowledging that we're making a film as we go along. But similar style to it. And also to where in that first few minutes, I'm thinking to myself, is this really the guy? Like, really, they're interviewing the real guy or not? And,
see, that's an advantage where you hadn't seen
I hadn't seen him as an actor.
So you're like, is this the real dude?
Yeah.
Right.
There for a little bit, I had to wonder. And then it's like, nah, he's too good an actor. This is an acted performance. So I felt like it was probably a good actor at that point.
So let me throw this to you then.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the setup at the top of the episode that this was a writing directing pair of, I'm assuming, husband and wife. If not, they must be brother or sister, but I think it's husband and wife.
Yeah.
Austin Bragg and Meredith Bragg. They both wrote and directed it. I think this is their feature debut. They've done some short films, so I'm not sure. I'll have to there again get the intern to.
They've directed shorts.
Okay, just
but
shorts.
This is their first feature. Yep.
So gotta say, unfortunately, we have two debuts in this episode.
Yeah.
We have When You Finish Saving the World and Pinball, the Man Who Saved the Game. I think I know where Alan says the better debut is.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So Meredith Bragg is actually his brother. So there's brothers. Austin and Meredith Bragg.
Oh,
Yeah.
Meredith.
I'm looking it up.
Okay, got you. Sorry
looking
about
it up.
that.
No, it's all
Meredith,
right.
probably not the first time Meredith has had that happen.
No. But I think I remember hearing somewhere it was like a brother's duo.
Brother
Like
duo.
I had to check
okay,
into
like
that.
the Coen brothers.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
So interesting there to see. And I feel like this is a outstanding first film. It doesn't do anything outrageously crazy, different, unique than what we've seen in other films, but it does it so effortlessly that it just felt so comfortable as a film to watch.
Well, something that reminded me of, you said you were thinking of Squid and the Whale when you were watching our first film. When I was watching this one, even though it's a different type of film, but I think the fact that it's obviously playing with trying to be a comedy, and it was, I laughed several times.
Sure.
But also because it was a period thing, it actually reminded me of Weird. The Weird Al Yankovic story.
I can see a lot of that there
totally
too.
a different thing. Like that's a real, and this is a real person too. But that was all music, and this was about pinball. But something about a lot of the period stuff, I think, reminded me of kind of, but in a good way. I thought they did a good job with the mockumentary look, how they set that up, and then all the stuff that happened in the 70s. I thought, costuming. Now, tell me your thoughts, because I watched this with my wife. We both had opinions. Tell me your thoughts on Mr. Feist-Faced's mustache.
Well, I mean, look, the mustache is ridiculous.
Is it?
I don't know if
it's
it's
ridiculous on purpose. Is it supposed to look like the worst fake mustache in the world?
I kind of think maybe so.
Okay.
I kind of think maybe because after the first few minutes of watching him with that mustache, I'm like, I mean, it's very obvious that's not real.
No.
But
the character has in real life, we're assuming, did have
it's
a mustache.
pretty. I mean, you saw the photos. There's photos in the closing credits. He definitely had a big stash, and they make comments about the mustache throughout the film as well. And there's even a funny moment where there's a kiss involved, and you can almost see her having to lift up the mustache in a way to kiss him. So it's got the whole tone of the film makes me think. Yeah, they're in on it. They know this is ridiculous, but we're going to go with this.
Okay, so you're thinking, they kind of. That's what I ended up on thinking the same way because I thought, kind of comparing it again to Weird, how Daniel Radcliffe, who was doing Weird Al, had this insane wig to be Weird Al. And you're like, that's totally. We know that's totally a wig.
It's got to be that.
And so but it was just the mustache because at first I was like, wow, that's really bad.
But again, I think.
But I think it was
with all the wall breaking going on in the film
Sure.
and all the kind of winking at the audience, and they know They know what kind of format they're supposed to be playing into with this biopic, and they're trying to break it at times. I think that that's got to be a conscious decision of, let's go with something that looks so obviously fake.
Right.
Because this guy does not have a mustache like the actor.
And, the actor being who he is and, has fan pages. Lots of people just think he's, just drop dead gorgeous, handsome. So it is kind of funny to not even try to have it be somewhat normal. Like, no, let's put a literal fake mustache on him and have that be the thing.
I think that's got to be part of the joke there.
I would agree with that.
Can I just comment too how much I loved the imagery of the pinball machines throughout this film? Every close up, every little bit, and even the points where he's kind of commenting on playing pinball to somebody else, and like some of the things I'm like, wow.
And he talks about kind of some of the design stuff going. He's well, you got to have a way to get up to this certain score area. You need to do this. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, granted, as I mentioned in my setup, I've loved pinball for a long time. Sure. I still like to play whenever I can. And this had a little bit more kind of behind the scenes about pinball itself.
Yeah. Which I think is, again, you take a subject matter, something we're all familiar with and we enjoy, pinball, you add a true historical fact to it that we were not aware of and a real backstory behind it. They never make any bones like this is some big earth-shattering biopic where he's out changing the world. No, he likes playing pinball. He would like to see pinball reinstated. The company who makes pinball machines would like to see them reinstated.
Right.
So it's like he's going to go and make a case for them to allow pinball machines again. That's it. That's the film. But along the way, he falls in love. He has relationships. He's, careers, all that. It's just great. It's just, it worked. So everything kind of worked and built to a good end. Some people could argue that the ending with his relationship and kind of where that is a little... it's a little cutesy. It's a little, I didn't mind it because I thought, you've earned it. Right. This whole movie, yes, please have this ending. I want you to have this ending because you've earned it with the rest of the film. So
yeah. I'm kind of with you. It's one of those things where the runtime of this, hour and a half, hour and 31 minutes. Perfect. They don't try to build it and try to make it more this big, huge, monumental moment in history. No, it's like, okay, here's a short little story. And
can I tell you something else that's interesting about this film? You never once see anybody outside of our main character, Roger, playing pinball. So it's never a situation of we're seeing this big global impact on the game of pinball and how other people are affected by it. And there's other people playing it. No, he meets a guy in a bar that's playing pinball and he decides to start playing as well. And that's it. The rest of the movie, it's we just see Roger playing it. He gets his girlfriend to play one time for a little bit. That's about it. But there's never a big, this is a big sweeping pinballs, pinball mania sweeping America type of thing. It's none of that. It's just, It's a very intimate little story of just Roger, his pinball machine, how he would like to have other people play pinball as well. So that's it. Yeah. It's a simple story, but it worked. It worked a lot.
And I'm really interested to see what this brother pair does next. I can see the first film we reviewed, it was at Sundance, and I can see, it's a very indie Sundance film. I can see how, I don't know where this thing premiered. I don't know if it did a festival run. I can see how, you can't really release it to theaters because it has a ridiculously long title. Pinball, the man who saved
No real stars.
No real stars. I mean, you have up and coming stars.
Yeah, but he's not a household name. No, he's not going to bring box office in on himself.
I'm surprised. It seems strong enough to me that it didn't get premiered on a Hulu or an Amazon or something. But this is one that if you and I hadn't reviewed, I think we definitely would have saved for a recommendation of a film hey, check this out. You probably haven't heard of it. So.
Yeah. No, I'm really impressed with Pinball. I enjoyed it immensely. Had such a good time with it. Maybe even one I'd want to watch again sometime soon, just because it was just a good, fun movie. Good, just a good, enjoyable film. So, and and not to say that this ever sways my opinion, but it was nice to see a film like this. That's kind of a small budget independent film. That's a PG-13 film. Pretty easy, kind of appeal to a wide audience. I mean, I think I could recommend this to other people, family members, and people that are like, hey, you ought to check this out. This is a good little film.
Right.
And
agreed.
It's nice to see those. So, no, sounds like we're both, I'm very excited. I'm very happy that we're both on the same page with this one. And also relieved to hear I wasn't completely out in left field on my take on When You Finish Saving the World. So
Gotcha. I'm just glad to hear you're on the same page with the mustache used in Pinball.
Yeah, no, it should receive an award of its own somehow.
Totally.
I think there should be an award for that mustache. All right, well, that is Pinball, the man who saved the game, directed by, I guess we call them the Bragg brothers, or Austin and Meredith Bragg.
Yeah.
Also written by them, starring Mike Feist. We're both giving it a good accolade here. It was a fun movie. Great, enjoyable, well-made film. All right, Chris, let's take a quick little break after we've finished our two main reviews here. We come back, we're going to do a little Oscars recap and just kind of give our assessment of how the Academy Awards went this year. And then Chris and I both have a recommendation to give as well of films to consider for your own viewing pleasure. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Foot Candle Films here in just a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Alan Jackson and Chris Fry with you here. We just finished our reviews of When You Finish Saving the World and Pinball, the man who saved the game. Down on one film, really high on the other. So at least we got a little balance going on there, but Chris and I were on the same page. Looks like pretty much on both films. But let's talk about some recent news, Chris. We're kind of done with our review of films for a little while. Let's talk about some things that happened, most notably the Academy Awards just in the last few weeks. We did have the Academy Awards celebration. Was that mid-March? I don't remember the date. March 12th, maybe, something like that.
March.
Yeah.
March 12th.
Yeah, March 12th.
Yeah.
Here we are, a couple weeks out from it, but we haven't had a chance, you and I, to sit down and actually talk since this ceremony happened. And we always like to do a little dissection. How did it go? What are our thoughts on it in general? I know that with as many wins as Everything Everywhere All at Once got this year at the Academy Awards, and we'll kind of hit those highlights in a moment. I know it's a film that you were rooting for. I mean, you wanted to see you do really well.
Sure.
I was rooting for it. It wasn't really my choices for like every category, but I was happy to see a film like this win as many as it did. Because it did win a large share of the awards. I think basically we're looking at Best Director. It went to the Daniels, which thought that was great. I thought they had a great speech to go along with it. It was a lot of fun. Best Supporting Actress going to Jamie Lee Curtis. Best Supporting Actor going to Ki Young Kwan. Best Actress going to Michelle Yeoh. And then, of course, Best Picture going to the film as well. Now, beyond that, it won.
Original Screenplay. Yeah.
Original Screenplay, it won. Best Film Editing, it won. And yeah, that appears to be it. So
quite a few.
It was the big winner for sure that night of not only just the big award, but all a lot of other big awards around it as well.
Sure.
So overall, you're happy on that end, right?
Yeah, I was. I am happy, and especially what makes it even better, like, I guess the speeches, you kind of want them, and then when the speeches are really awesome, or you feel like they're really excited about it, or it means something to them, then you're like, okay.
It solidified that. It's a little bit of the way I felt when Parasite won.
Right.
I just felt like, that worked. I think everybody was kind of on board with how important that award was and how meaningful it was to them. Here, I felt the same way with this one for sure.
And I think there's a lot of, because of the names you mentioned and the people involved, there's some diversity there, which is always nice. And I think this, more than coming off the heels of Parasite and then Nomadland and Coda, and now we have Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think it's really interesting time for the Academy, where it used to be like, if you'd asked somebody 10 years ago, Steven Spielberg's going to make a movie that's basically kind of a biography about himself, and it's going to be up for Best Picture, they're like, and that's the winner, and that's the winner for Best Director, and like you would have just assumed all that because it's like, it's Steven Spielberg. And a lot of times in Oscar contests and stuff, a lot of times things like that, people skew that way, and I think it's really interesting that it seems like, no, there's whether it's younger voters in the Academy or whether the Academy has just decided to try to start broadening its view. I think it's pretty interesting.
Well, I agree completely. And I also think it's interesting that, Fableman's won nothing.
Yeah.
Like big goose egg. Actually, when you look at big budget films and how they fared in general, the only ones we've got that were huge hits. Avatar won for best visual effects. Black Panther got best costume design, and Top Gun Maverick got best sound.
So the big blockbusters got one Oscar,
one Oscar each.
Yeah.
Everything else was done by, I consider, quote, smaller films. Even All Quiet on the Western Front, which, is a big production project. It went straight to Netflix. It was not a huge hit, like financial hit for anybody.
Right.
But it won, whatever awards, Everything Everywhere All at Once didn't win. I think All Quiet on the Western Front got best original score, best international feature, best cinematography, best production design. So,
which was a recommendation on this show, from both of us, I think.
We both really liked the film a lot. Yeah. So really, outside of those two films, and then you get 2 awards for The Whale. They got best makeup and hairstyling, and then best actor for Brendan Fraser. That's pretty much it. Women Talking got best adapted screenplay. But otherwise, that's pretty much all your awards covered by mainly those 2 to 3 films.
I was excited to see. I feel like there are a lot of the categories are stacked. I feel like best actor, you mentioned Brendan Fraser, Ron. I really liked Colin Farrell. Banshees of Inisherin, I was okay on, but I really liked Colin Farrell in that film. And Austin Butler, he's really strong in Elvis. So I can just continue really strong category. But I got to say, it's the whole heartstring pull of Brendan Fraser winning. I'm just like,
it's probably the
awesome.
best winner we could have had for it during this, as far as ceremony goes and all that. Yes, I was pulling for Austin Butler. I still think I think his role as Elvis was, it's not overlooked. He won a nomination for it, but I do feel like it was kind of a feat. And yes, I agree. Brendan Fraser as in The Whale, it was a good acting performance for sure. But I also wonder how much of it was makeup, how much of it was the setting and the environment he was put in, as far as letting him play in that role and just, with the sympathy it automatically garners for him.
Right.
So anyway, it's a little bit of a mix of it. You have a character that you're meant to feel pity for and sympathize for, but also you feel like you look at somewhat negatively and you have some very negative opinions on. And then you add Brendan Fraser as an actor, someone who's been out of Hollywood for so long and was kind of at the peak. He was kind of I don't want people to say people joked about him as an actor, but nobody ever really took him seriously as a actor. It's like he was always, oh yeah, he's the guy in George of the Jungle. He's in the Mummy movies. He's kind of, a little bit of a hammy actor. And then then he's gone. Mm-hmm. So to bring him back and to put him in that kind of role, yes, it was kind of making it was almost like it was gearing for this award. And I never like it when I feel like roles are intentionally kind of designed for that. But then again, I guess playing Elvis in a big biopic is obviously a big Oscar bait as well. So, I was fine with Brendan Fraser winning. He was not my choice, but for the pageantry of the ceremony, it worked really good. I was, honestly, I'll tell you, so not really, I wasn't surprised by Best Picture. I wasn't surprised by Best Actress. Wasn't surprised by Best Supporting Actor. Still very surprised by Jamie Lee Curtis, Best Supporting Actress. That was the one that
As was Angela Bassett.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I was pulling for Angela Bassett thinking she had a better chance of winning, but I just didn't feel like Jamie Lee Curtis yes, it was a very physical role and all that, but I didn't really see I didn't see as much acting as I felt like we're going on the other supporting role nominations.
I see. I feel like, that was a close race. I had picked Bassett, but then changed it to Jamie Lee Curtis because I felt like the snowball effect of like what I had heard the buzz. Now I felt like Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of had the momentum, and I felt like that was going to be what pushed Jamie Lee Curtis. So, but I think you can say, obviously Angela Bassett was really strong in Wakanda Forever. So
yeah, but overall, I don't think there were really like any shocks. Do you feel like anything, or you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that won? I felt like everything was kind of either it was the expected winner or it was like the second choice possible expected winner. or it was like a big budget film that we just kind of knew. Yeah, okay, Top Gun winning sound, that makes sense. Okay, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever winning best costume design. Yeah, sure, makes sense.
No, I agree, and I don't think ceremonies have to have. I mean, because then it's rigged if they just throw a bunch of like curveballs in there just to make you watch it or whatever.
Well, it'd be authentic. Yeah.
So I thought it was authentic, and I guess the biggest surprise for me was that kind of what I mentioned, the mindset that I assumed Academy was still in. I'm like, yeah, maybe they'll give Michelle Yeoh, or she deserves, and they'll give her the Academy Award for Best Actress. Kihei Kwan for his success story about, kind of returning dad. Yeah, sure. Maybe writing, but director and picture, I just don't know that. Like, I just don't feel. So that was kind of a surprise to me that like, no, they actually are going to win it. So that, and I guess a lot of people are like, well, of course they are. They've won all these other awards. Of course they're going to win. But for me, it was still kind of like what you mentioned. It was the Parasite moment with that one. I like jumped up and was like, yes. Like I was just
because
really excited.
We weren't used to these films winning for a good while in the Academy Award history there.
So, and I will say one thing that I was glad they were nominated, and I didn't think enough people had seen it that it would win. But I guess if there's a category where something's going to sneak in that not a lot of people have heard of or not a lot of people have seen, it would be in the writing categories, because that's, and especially adapted screenplay, women talking, winning for. I was really happy about that, and kind of surprised just because I didn't think enough people had seen it. Whereas at that point, All Quiet on the Western Front had walked away with so much. I was just like, well, it's probably going to win for that.
Yeah, that's true.
But it didn't. So
I only want to mention this just because we actually did some screenings of the narrative or live action and documentary short films.
Right.
For this year's Academy Award.
For our Film Society.
Our Film Society held screenings of those here in Western North Carolina. And so we all got a chance to see these films kind of in a theater environment beforehand, which was nice.
It was.
So I think we were all happy An Irish Goodbye won for Best Live Action Short Film, because that was kind of a favorite of the audience that we watched it with, and rightfully so. And then The Elephant Whisperers winning for Best Documentary. Not the one I would have chosen, but I get why it won, because it did. It was a really well shot film. It looked great. Subject matter being people caring for these elephants was always going to get fans. So, but I thought the documentary shorts were a really strong set of documentary short films. So I do think there were probably 3 of those 5 that I could have seen any of those 3 winning and felt like there would have been, it was a good choice. So.
Kind of a closing thought for me on it is, I will say this year was a huge year for A24. Yes. They did Everything Everywhere All at Once. So all the awards, they kind of had, part in there. And then they also did The Whale, which Brendan Fraser won. So you think about how much they locked up. Then basically A24 and Netflix, because Netflix did All Quiet on the Western Front, and they also did The Elephant Whisperers, which
they did Del Toro's Pinocchio, which won Best Animated Film.
We have not, that's right. So they, between Netflix and A24, they did pretty.
They covered it all.
Which is interesting for me.
Everything except for the 3 I talked about: Avatar, Black Panther, and Top Gun. The 3 kind of, I don't want to say smaller awards. They're important awards, but not 3 of the big awards you think of as kind of like the headline awards.
Which it was interesting for me that Alan and I had mentioned before, obviously we're movie critics because we're talking about movies here, but we receive screeners and we receive materials from movie companies to try to promote their films around award season. We got tons of stuff for Pinocchio. So I was very aware, and I'm happy it won. I did like it. I was pulling for Marcel the Shell, but that would have been a surprise for me if that would have actually been able to win. But curious to see something besides a Disney film or a Pixar film take animated film, because Pinocchio was not. It's a Netflix joint. So interesting. But where was I going with that? I was going with that somewhere.
I remember.
I can't remember. But I just think, saying, now I know what I was saying. Okay. All Quiet on the Western Front won so much, and Netflix didn't do any marketing for it.
True.
And which is weird because they, like I mentioned, same company did all this marketing for Pinocchio and didn't really do any. I don't know whether they didn't do it because they felt like they didn't have to, which maybe that's it, or I don't know, but I just found it really surprising that it was nominated for all those categories and they hadn't really done as heavy marketing, at least that I was aware of. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
But still, take away A24 and Netflix are huge winners at this Academy Awards. So
Yeah, no, it's all true. That's good. I thought overall I was satisfied with the awards. I was satisfied with the winners. I was satisfied with the ceremony. I thought everything was a pretty good night.
Yeah.
It worked out pretty well. Everything good. Still went to 11:30. One day, somebody's going to come in there and break that formula and get it down to like a good 90 minute to 2 hour show.
I just don't think, I don't think it'll ever happen. And I'm kind of okay with it because I think you're going to cut something that's going to make, if you cut anything out of there, you're going to make people mad. If you cut the in memoriam, you're going to make people mad. If you cut the musical numbers, which they have done in the past, you're going to make people mad because they feel like it's not showing the respect. So all in all, like you said, I feel like it's a good ceremony. There is a little bit of kind of like crowd work banter that they do out there when they're stretching, basically. Yeah, if they could find some way to just eliminate the stretching time that they do the crowd work, yeah, that'd be nice because that would save time. But, I think as it is, I just expect it to run long.
So be it. All right. Well, that is the Academy Awards. Sounds like we were both pretty pleased with how it all turned out. And our predictions were mostly spot on. Chris, you won the pool. Chris and I have our own private 2-person pool. We opened it up to the rest of the Foot Candle Film Society members, but at the end of the day, the competition is just with the two of us.
Yes.
There's a winner and there's a loser. You won.
I believe
You
out
got
of the 23,
17?
I guess 17.
I think it's
that's
17.
right.
And I think I was at 15. So
Okay.
2 behind you. And 15 out of 23 is still pretty good for me. I'm not the best predictor on these Academy Awards, but you still won. And we agreed before the show that whoever won, we get to select a film that the other has to watch.
Right.
And the other person has to watch that film and come and prepare to review it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
on
be a huge
this
review,
podcast.
but it does have to at least.
Oh,
give
if I
some
had won,
thoughts.
it was going to be, I was going to give you a whole 45 minutes. I need you to dissect every element of the film I chose for you.
Fair.
But you said there's no time limit. So good. I'll give you a nice little 3-4 minute little
I
synopsis
think that
of
will
it.
probably be plenty.
But, so Chris, you do get to select the film. I have to watch it. I have to come back with my thoughts on the film.
Yes.
Have you chosen a film for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what would that film be?
I would like for you to watch 80 for Brady.
AD 80 for Brady.
Yes.
BRADY.
You do not have to wear a New England Patriots uniform.
I was going to say, you got to get it right if you're going to introduce
come on,
the film.
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't have to wear a Patriots uniform while watching said film.
So there's no dress requirements as I watch the film. I can
Nor
watch
when you
it.
come in for the review. You don't have to
Okay,
be
good.
wearing
All right, that was going to be my next follow-up question. But I can wear any kind of attire I want. I just have to watch the movie.
Yes.
And then come back to this podcast and be prepared to talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, this is the one with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, Sally Field, which I like all of them as actresses.
Yeah.
So this can't be that horrible.
And I believe Tom Brady is in
the movie. Okay,
Yes.
well that may be tough. All right. Challenge or penalty accepted.
Fair enough.
I will be watching 80 for Brady. I will plan on our next recording session to come in with a full-throated review of the film.
And just like at NFL professional sporting events, Alan, they do sell popcorn, pretzels, and beer. So if you feel like you need to enjoy any of said items to enjoy the film, that is also fine.
I do not, if the movie is available on home rental, is that allowed?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I do not have to go physically to a theater to see this.
No, you can watch it at home. Yeah.
Because 80 for Brady right now, I can rent.
Okay.
Oh boy. But it's a big rental. I'm just trying to think if it's worth the rental.
Well, there's not a time frame. If we need to wait until it's like instead of buying the film, if we need to wait. So you got till the next episode.
All right. So. I'll see what's available. I will plan on watching it. I have a bar in my own home theater room I will be using to watch 80 for Brady. Okay.
Nice.
All right, Chris. Well, that wraps up that news section. We'll be back when we get back next time to talk about maybe some new trailers and other films that are coming out that we want to talk about. Before we, though, wrap it up, we do have one last thing to get to, and that is our recommendations. Chris and I scour our film library and watch films online and be able to give you a recommendation of something we think is worth checking out, or in my case, one I feel like ought to be skipped. But Chris,
Actually, why don't you go first? Because we like ending on a positive
note. On a positive note. Mine is not, unfortunately, a positive note, so I will go ahead and get mine out of the way.
Sure.
I don't normally like to do negative recommendations. I think that's hurtful to the film industry. I don't normally like to tell people to stay away from a film. However, and this is more of a cautionary tale I'm giving. Kevin Smith is a writer-director that we have seen, and I honestly kind of felt like I followed for a good while, because when he started making films back in the early 90s, it was kind of this big revolution of like, he's an independent filmmaker. He maxed out his credit cards just to get enough money to make a film. He made the movie Clerks. And although Clerks is not a great movie, it's just more what it stood for, I think, is what really made it work and why it became a little bit of a cultural touchstone for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Between that and Pulp Fiction, I think those are two moments where it's like people are like, oh, I can make films, and I can make films that are different and unique and all that.
Absolutely.
Which is great. He did Clerks 2. He did like several other films in his little shared universe of characters. He eventually made Clerks 2.
Which I liked.
You did like. I thought was fine. I didn't love it, but I did think it had some fun moments. And I thought it was a very well-made film. I thought, the budget had obviously gone up. He had more money to put into it. Mm-hmm. Then he made some other films that progressively got more and more skewered by critics. Like it just seemed to go downhill. Yoga Hosers,
which I never saw.
Never saw that either.
I did see Tusk.
Tusk, yeah, which was one. He did another Jay and Silent Bob, like a reboot film, which I never saw.
I saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but
you're
talking, which I like, but you're talking about
reboot,
that. Right?
Before this one, that I'm going to talk about.
Which I did not see.
I did not see it either. I did not hear good things. Now Clerks 3 have come out.
Right.
Clerks 3 has come out.
Yes.
Clerks 3 is a film that's singular. Clerks 3. Okay, got it. And the whole premise of Clerks 3, once again written, directed by Kevin Smith, is that Randall and Dante, who are the two guys who run the Quickie Mart, they decide to make a movie about their experiences at the Quickie Mart. Kind of immortalize themselves, because one of them has a health scare that kind of puts them in a position of, oh, my life's passing by too quick. I want to immortalize this time we've had together. So they make a movie. So there's definitely a format to this film of a film within a film. They are making a film where they're recalling and reshooting scenes from the original Clerks film.
Gotcha.
So it has a little bit of a meta thing going on where they're making the original Clerks film, making jokes about choices that were made when making the first Clerks film and why they're now making those choices now. So some moments that are supposed to be humorous and supposed to be funny. I'm here to say, unfortunately, I think the shtick has gone on too long.
Gotcha.
I don't think this works. I think the concept of the film is interesting, but acting is rough, very, very rough. Filmmaking in general, I thought
not
was
intentionally so.
No.
Okay.
Filmmaking is pretty rough as well. It's tough for me to see because I don't see a lot of talent on the screen that's evolved very much at all from the original Clerks film, which is like, you know what, Kevin Smith, you've made so many films. I know you've learned things along the way. I know you've fine-tuned your craft, but I'm not seeing any of it anymore in your work. And so ultimately disappointed. There's an ending to this that, God, did the ending work? I don't know. It's an ending that goes for drama.
Oh.
Pretty heavy.
Oh.
Kind of sort of worked, but man, I don't know. I have a hard time recommending this film, unfortunately. And it pains me to say that because I like pulling for Kevin Smith. I want his films to work. I want to enjoy his films. I've kind of felt the same way about him that I have felt about him like Shyamalan at times, where it's like, man, come on, man. You got it. I know you can make this work. Please make this a good film. And he comes close at times, and I think Kevin Smith has come close at times. But I don't know. I just never feel like he's ever going to live up to Clerks, possibly Mallrats. I do think Mallrats and Chasing Amy might be the two.
I really liked Dogma.
Okay, Dogma was good, but I think he hit his peak at Chasing Amy. I think Chasing Amy was probably his most solid movie.
Okay.
That just worked top to bottom in general. But Dogma was right after Chasing Amy, I think. So yeah, that period of his career, I think, worked. Unfortunately, it's just been diminishing returns after that. And this film, unfortunately, carried on that same idea. So, as I said, I'm sorry to say it, but yes, I do feel like it is a letdown. Clerks 3 did not work for me. So I hate giving the negative recommendation for once in the last several months, but so be it.
Okay.
It's what I have to give you today.
Sure.
So,
I understand.
But Chris, come on, let's end on a positive. What was a good film or that you saw that you want to recommend to people?
So I'd like to recommend The Outfit by Graham Moore. And due to my research, I think he is a first-time filmmaker as well, or at least this is his first feature. It stars Mark Rylance as Leonard, an English tailor who has moved to the United States after an unfortunate personal tragedy. He's now in Chicago, and he runs a tailor shop in a rough part of town where he makes these really beautifully tailored clothes, unfortunately for the only people around who can afford them, which is a family of gangsters. And basically some events happen that puts him in trouble. It is streaming on Amazon Prime, so it's really easy for you to catch up with. And I had heard very little about this, but I had heard like a Foot Candle member actually mentioned that they had seen it. Actually came to our theater here for like a week, came and went. But they said, oh, The Outfit's really good. I was like, okay. I saw it pop up on Amazon Prime. I like Mark Rylance. We talked about his performance in Bones and All, how he was really good in that film from 2022. This is a 2022 film, but it was one that kind of flew under the radar. So I thought it was really good. So it's a period piece kind of taking place in like, I guess, a real big mob era in Chicago. But I recommend it. It's called The Outfit, and it's on Amazon Prime.
The Outfit on Amazon Prime. I did not mention, but Clerks 3, you can rent it any of the places, Amazon, iTunes, so forth.
But he may discourage you not to. So
yeah, I just, if it's streaming for free somewhere and you're just a Kevin Smith completist, fine. But I don't recommend spending hard-earned money to watch this. Where The Outfit does sound like not only is it something you may even want to spend money for if you had to, but you can actually watch it on Amazon Prime if you have a membership for free now anyway. Okay. So that wraps it up for today. So our recommendations capped off the episode. We did our Academy Award recap and analysis of those awards. And of course, we kicked off the show with our reviews, a slightly negative, less than fine review of When You Finish Saving the World by writer-director Jesse Eisenberg, and a very positive review, surprisingly positive review of Pinball, the Man Who Saved the Game. Both of them available for rent or viewing online through your distribution channel of choice. All right, Chris, if anybody wants to chime in the conversation here, talk to us, give us some feedback, tell us some thoughts, maybe try to be a champion for Clerks 3. Tell me what I missed on that film that I should have appreciated more. How can they get a hold of us?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Twitter @FootCandleFilm. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave short reviews. I will mention also that if you use iTunes or another subscription service to kind of keep track of our podcast, do us a favor, leave a review, because reviews help us gain new listeners. So that's always very helpful. And last but not least, 2023 Foot Candle Film Festival is running September 18th through the 24th. So if you're in the North Carolina area, come check it out. It'll be in Hickory, North Carolina.
Yep, we're going to have a great time with this festival. A lot of fun stuff planned. We'll be sharing with you in the future episodes as we get closer to the date. But we do encourage you, like Chris said, if you are going to have an opportunity to come and spend time with us in Western North Carolina in late September, we would love to see you here at the Foot Candle Film Festival. But otherwise, if you're not able to come to our festival, we hope you will at least come back next time we get together and record an episode of Foot Candle Films. So for Alan Jackson, for Chris Fry, we're bidding you adieu, and we will see you next time.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.